The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. The stars shimmered as always, their cold light piercing the velvety black of the galaxy. On the edge of a dying star system floated the Ark, a colossal ship built millennia ago by its long-slumbering inhabitants, the humans. They were a mysterious species, infamous across the universe for two things: creating wonders of unparalleled destruction and disappearing almost overnight. For centuries, countless civilizations had studied the Ark, treating it as both a cautionary tale and a forbidden fruit. The rule was clear: don't wake the humans. No one remembered who first decreed it, but every species understood the weight of the warning. Until the Ulthoran arrived. Driven by arrogance and desperation, the Ulthoran were a fledgling race teetering on the brink of extinction. Their homeworld had been consumed by a black hole they accidentally engineered, and now they scavenged the cosmos for survival. They believed the humans' dormant technology held the key to their salvation. They didn't heed the warnings, breaking the rule. Inside the Ark, humans lay suspended in cryogenic stasis, billions of them. The Ulthoran hacked ancient systems, their claws clattering against controls they barely understood. The ship began to hum as ancient mechanisms roared to life for the first time in eons. The humans stirred. At first, the Ulthoran cheered, mistaking the shaking of the Ark for a sign of success. They whispered of salvation as the stasis pods hissed open. The first human stepped out, a woman with eyes that gleamed like fire. And then she smiled. The consequences. The galaxy soon learned why the rule had existed. Humans, it turned out, were not the desperate remnants of a fallen civilization, but a force slumbering until the universe evolved into something they could conquer once more. They had sealed themselves away not in defeat but in preparation, waiting for the stars themselves to align in their favor. The first wave of humans emerged from their pods and immediately resumed their long-forgotten empire's mission: to rule. Planets burned. Fleets disappeared. Even the Ulthoran, who had triggered the awakening, were annihilated in the humans' path of conquest. Chapter 1. The One Rule. The stars stretched infinitely, pinpoints of light scattered across a black canvas. In this part of the galaxy, order had reigned for millennia, orchestrated by the sentient species known collectively as the Overseers. Their task was monumental but simple in premise: preserve the tranquility of the Milky Way and protect the greatest secret ever known. Humanity, the most dangerous and unpredictable species, slept. They had entered their slumber eons ago, cocooned in stasis pods that dotted the earth like ancient relics. No one knew exactly why the humans had put themselves into stasis. Some said it was to escape a catastrophic war. Others theorized they sought to escape death itself. Whatever the reason, the universe's prime directive was clear: do not wake the humans. Every civilization knew the tale. Every ship's navigation system contained the warning in bold red text. And for countless eons, the rule had been respected. That is, until today. Captain N's voice echoed to the cramped cockpit of the Zinter scout ship, Lumina. Initiate landing sequence. We'll make this quick. Her crew, a mix of Zinter and Mechnid engineers, bustled about the controls. The metallic clanging of their tools was almost drowned out by the droning hum of the ship systems. Below them, Earth loomed large, a blue and green marble bathed in the glow of its aging sun. "Do we really have to land here?" grumbled Solon, the chief mechanic. His pincers clicked anxiously against the controls. "This place gives me the shivers." And Wyan shot him a sharp glare. Her mandibles flared, a sign of irritation among her kind. "It's a derelict planet. We'll salvage the energy cells we need and leave. No one's waking up anything, but the rule will remain unbroken," she snapped. "We're professionals, not storybook fools." The ship's descent was smooth but tense. Every creak of the hull seemed amplified by the oppressive weight of history. Earth's surface came into view. Overgrown cities reclaimed by nature, their once mighty skyscrapers now skeletal remnants draped in vines. Rivers cut through the land like silver veins, and vast forests blanketed the planet in a sea of green. It was hauntingly beautiful. As they neared their landing site, the team's chatter dwindled. Even the ship's AI seemed subdued, its usual cheery tones replaced by a muted monotone. The Lumina touched down in the heart of an overgrown metropolis. The crew filed out, their boots crunching against ancient concrete, now riddled with moss and roots. "Stick to the mission," NYN ordered. "Find the energy cells and nothing else." The team fanned out, scanners in hand. The ruins were eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. Solon's unease grew with every step. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Captain," he called over the comm, "I've got something." "Report." He hesitated. His scanner was picking up faint power signatures, but they weren't from energy cells. They were too stable, too rhythmic. "It's stasis pods. Intact ones." NYN's voice turned icy. "Do not approach. Mark the location and move on." "Understood?" But even as he said it, his curiosity gnawed at him. He approached anyway, the glow of the pods drawing him in like a moth to flame. Inside, he could make out the faint silhouettes of humans, their faces serene and untouched by time. One pod, however, was different. Its surface was cracked, and the glow inside flickered ominously. Solon's antennae twitched. Against his better judgment, he reached out, his claw brushing against the control panel. The pod hissed. "Solon, what are you doing?" NYN's voice barked in his earpiece, but it was too late. The human's eyes snapped open. Chapter 2, Awakening. The air inside the pod escaped with a pressurized sigh, a sound that echoed through the silent ruins. Solon stumbled back, his eyes wide with panic as the human began to stir. "What have you done?" NYN's voice was sharp, her mandibles clicking in anger. She sprinted toward his location, followed closely by the rest of the crew. The human groaned, their movements slow and unsteady, as if waking from the depths of a long, dreamless sleep. They were male with disheveled hair and a lean build. His eyes, a piercing blue, darted around, taking in his surroundings with a mix of confusion and caution. "Where?" His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. Solon froze, his instincts screaming at him to run. But something about the human's gaze rooted him in place. There was an intensity there, an intelligence that felt dangerous. NYN arrived, her weapon drawn. "Step away from the pod, Solon." "I didn't mean to," he stammered. "It just happened." The human's eyes locked onto NYN. He straightened, his movements growing steadier with each passing second. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice gaining strength. NYN's grip on her weapon tightened. "We mean no harm. We're leaving now." The human tilted his head, studying her. "No harm." He glanced around, his gaze lingering on the ruins. A shadow of recognition crossed his face. "Earth, what year is it?" NYN didn't answer. Instead, she gestured for her crew to retreat, back to the ship. "Now." The human took a step forward, his expression hardening. "You woke me. You owe me answers." "We owe you nothing," NYN snapped. "Stay here. Go back to sleep if you can. This is not your world anymore." Something shifted in the human's demeanor. The confusion melted away, replaced by cold determination. "Not my world? Who decided that?" Before NYN could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble grew into a deafening roar as the other stasis pods began to activate. Lights flickered to life, and the air filled with the hiss of decompressing chambers. One by one, the humans stirred, their movements sluggish but purposeful. NYN's eyes widened in horror. "You fool!" she shouted at Solon. "You've doomed us all." The crew scrambled to retreat, but the humans were waking faster now. The first man stepped forward, his gaze fixed on NYN. "You're not leaving," he said, his voice carrying an authority that was impossible to ignore. "Not until you tell us what happened. We don't have time for this. And Wyan hissed. She raised her weapon, but the human didn't flinch. Instead, he moved with lightning speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. His hand shot out, grabbing the weapon and crushing it as if it were made of paper. The crew froze, paralyzed by fear. Wyan stared at the man in shock, her mandibles quivering. "This is our world," the human said, his voice calm but laced with menace. "And it's time we took it back." The Lumina crew's retreat turned into a desperate scramble. The humans, fully awake now, moved with an eerie coordination, their expressions grim. They didn't attack, but their presence alone was enough to send waves of panic through the Zinter team. Wyan managed to rally her crew near the ship. "We need to leave. Now." "What about the rule?" Solon asked, his voice trembling. "The rule is meaningless if we're dead," Wyan barked. As they boarded the Lumina, the humans watched from a distance, their piercing gazes following every move. The first man, their apparent leader, stood at the forefront, his arms crossed. As the ship's engines roared to life, he spoke, his voice carrying effortlessly over the din. "You can't run from this. We're awake now. The galaxy will remember us." The word sent a chill through Wyan. She didn't look back as the Lumina shot into the sky, leaving Earth behind. But deep down, she knew the human was right. The galaxy would remember, and it would never be the same. Chapter 3, Echoes in the Void. A low hum resonated through the interstellar collective station Zeta 9 as the shockwaves of a blaring alarm jolted its inhabitants awake. Though they varied in physiology and consciousness, ranging from gelatinous sylphids to the crystalline chorix, each occupant understood the one immutable law of the galaxy: don't wake the humans. Yet the station had been breached. Corrales, a senior operative of the Unified Galactic Accord, floated into the command chamber. His translucent body glowed faintly, the edges of his aura flickering with anxiety. The screens before him painted a grim picture, signs of disturbance in Sector Alpha 12, the containment sector for the human cryopods. "Who would dare?" Corrales asked aloud, addressing no one in particular, but demanding an answer all the same. A voice, sharp and laden with exasperation, answered, "That is precisely what we need to find out." A tall, insectoid being, Morvex, stepped forward, his many eyes darting across the screen. The sensors detected unauthorized access. "The containment seal, it's been breached." "Breached?" Corrales' glow dimmed, the crystalline lattice of his form trembling. "Are they awake?" "Not yet." But the breach introduced a cascade of anomalies in the cryostasis field. Morvex clicked his mandibles. "If we don't stabilize it soon, they will be." The silence that followed was palpable. The air seemed heavier, as though the station itself mourned the inevitable doom awaiting them should the humans stir. "Initiate lockdown," Corrales ordered. "No one enters or leaves the sector without my authorization." "Already done," Morvex replied. "But there's more." He hesitated. "Spit it out, Morvex." The insectoid leaned closer to the console, his mandibles twitching. "The intruder wasn't one of us. At least, not from this station." Corrales processed this information, his glow darkening further. The galaxy was vast, filled with factions, rogues, and opportunists. Any of them could have been desperate enough or foolish enough to breach the most sacred rule. But the idea of outsiders meddling with humanity's containment, trace their ship, find out where they came from and where they went. "I want answers within the hour." Morvex hesitated, "And if they've succeeded in waking one?" Corrales' form solidified slightly, his voice colder than the vacuum of space. "Then may the stars forgive us all." Chapter 4, Stirring Titans. Beneath the sterile surface of Sector Alpha 12, the air was alive with tension. Machines whirred and hissed as repair drones scuttled between damaged consoles, desperately trying to stabilize the cryostasis systems. The pods themselves, Massive capsules lined with glowing blue conduits stood like ancient obelisks, each housing a single human. Inside one pod, a crack began to form. The pod's occupants stirred. The monitors went wild, flashing incomprehensible warnings in a dozen galactic languages. The human's brain activity surged as neural pathways reactivated, connecting synapses long dormant. Fingers twitched and eyelids fluttered. For the first time in millennia, a human opened their eyes. Lieutenant Commander Ava Morgan blinked against the harsh light that stabbed at her retinas. Her throat felt parched, her muscles stiff and weak. It took her a moment to register the glass panel in front of her and the faintly shimmering force field beyond it. A small panel on the interior of the pod displayed fragments of data, much of it corrupted beyond recognition. Her voice came out hoarse. "What the hell?" The force field dissipated with a faint hum, and the pod door swung open. Ava's instincts kicked in, and she stumbled forward, her boots landing on cold metal. Her body protested every movement, but she pushed through the discomfort. Survival training ran through her mind. Assess. Adapt. Act. The room was cavernous, filled with rows of identical pods, each containing another human. Most were intact, their occupants suspended in peaceful oblivion. But a few showed signs of disturbance. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass, and some were dark and lifeless. Ava's mind raced. The last thing she remembered was boarding the SS Resolution. Her team had been preparing for long-term stasis as part of a deep space colonization initiative. But this wasn't the Resolution, and the technology, it was far more advanced than anything humanity had built. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Ava spun around, her muscles screaming in protest. A spherical drone floated toward her, its surface smooth and iridescent. It projected a hologram of a being she didn't recognize, a tall, glowing figure that seemed more light than substance. "Human," the hologram said in a voice that resonated unnaturally. "You must return to your stasis pod. For the safety of all, you cannot remain awake." Ava's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to tell me that?" The hologram flickered slightly, as though the question had caused it discomfort. "I am Corrales, representative of the Unified Galactic Accord. Your awakening is a grave error. Please comply." "Grave error?" Ava repeated, her voice gaining strength. She gestured to the damaged pods. "You call this a mistake? What happened here?" Corrales hesitated, his glow dimming. "There was an intrusion. Your containment was compromised." "Containment?" Ava's tone sharpened. "What exactly am I being contained for?" The drone's movements became more agitated, its light shifting rapidly between colors. Corrales' voice grew sterner. "You must comply. This is for the safety of the galaxy." Ava took a step forward, defiance etched into her every movement. "You expect me to trust you after waking up in a prison I never agreed to? Start talking, or I start dismantling." The hologram flickered again, then vanished. The drone's lights dimmed as it backed away cautiously. Ava's heart pounded as she surveyed her surroundings. She didn't know where she was, but one thing was clear. The rules of this strange galaxy didn't apply to her. And if they wanted her back in the pod, it meant she was a threat. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Good." Chapter 5. The Fractured Silence. The silence that had blanketed the universe for millennia was not just any silence. It was enforced. Galactic councils spanning countless species had adhered to one unshakable law: never wake the humans. But the rule had been broken, and now the stars shivered in anticipation. On the fringes of the galaxy, deep within the veiled nebula, Captain Valus of the Verith Dominion's exploratory fleet stared at the growing anomaly on the ship's main display. The anomaly pulsed, a rhythm eerily similar to a heartbeat, but this was no natural phenomenon. It was an awakening. "Report," Valus barked, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere of the command bridge. A junior officer with emerald skin and luminous, swirling eyes fumbled with the data streams. "Captain, The disturbance originates from Sector 13 Theta, the Sol system. It matches the signature of human technology. The bridge fell silent. No one dared speak of it outright, but they all knew what this meant. Humanity, the ancient apex species, had been in stasis for eons. They were the stuff of nightmares, of cautionary tales whispered in hushed tones. Even the youngest species in the galaxy knew to tread lightly around their legacy. How? Velus's voice was sharp, but beneath it lay a tremor of fear. How did this happen? The officer hesitated. There are reports of interference, unauthorized incursions into restricted zones by rogue scavengers. One vessel was tracked near Mars's orbital graveyard. They might have triggered something. Velus clenched her talon-like fingers. Scavengers, always poking where they shouldn't. Send an emergency transmission to the Dominion High Council. Notify all fleets within 10 light years to prepare for containment protocols. As the crew scrambled to comply, the anomaly's pulsating grew faster, and with it came a low, resonating hum that seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of space. Far from the bridge of Velus's ship, deep within the Sol system, the scavenger vessel Hollow Venture drifted in orbit above Earth. Its captain, Jork, an infamous Ligar known for his reckless greed, was oblivious to the Pandora's box he had just opened. "What's the haul?" Jork demanded, leaning over the shoulder of his chief engineer, Kryn. The cramped, dimly lit ship buzzed with activity as the crew sorted through their latest spoils from Mars's ruins. Kryn's antennae twitched nervously. "Captain, this isn't just scrap. It's human tech, and it's active." Jork's eyes gleamed with greed. "Active? You mean operational?" "No. Worse," Kryn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's waking up." Before Jork could respond, the ship's lights flickered and a deep, mechanical voice echoed through the corridors. The voice was ancient, cold, and impossibly human. Designation Earth. Status Awakening. The crew froze. Jork's bravado faltered. What the hell was that? Kryn's complexion darkened. "We need to leave. Now." But it was too late. The air around the ship seemed to warp, a ripple spreading outward from Earth's surface. Systems malfunctioned. Alarms blared, and the Hollow Venture was caught in an invisible grip, dragged inexorably toward the blue planet below. Chapter 6. Humanity Stirs. The world had been still for eons, its cities buried beneath layers of ice and vegetation. Oceans had calmed, skies had cleared, and Earth had become a hushed monument to its once dominant inhabitants. But now, deep within the ruins of a forgotten metropolis, a colossal chamber began to hum with life. In the heart of this chamber, a stasis pod, larger than any known spacecraft, pulsed with a rhythmic glow. Within it lay a human, not dead, not alive, but something in between. Monitors flickered to life, analyzing, recalibrating. The chamber's AI, a relic of humanity's golden age, processed the intrusions that had disrupted its millennia-long vigil. Awakening protocol initiated, it announced. Authorization breach detected. Defensive measures compromised. The AI's voice echoed to the subterranean complex, triggering a cascade of systems long dormant. Lights illuminated forgotten corridors. Automated defenses, long silent, whirred to life. In orbit, ancient satellites aligned themselves, broadcasting signals that rippled across the stars. Above Earth, the Hollow Venture was caught in a storm of electromagnetic interference. Jork's crew scrambled to regain control as the ship hurtled toward the planet. "Brace for impact," Jork shouted, gripping the edge of a console. The ship plummeted through Earth's atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. It crashed into a frozen wasteland, sending up a plume of snow and ice. Miraculously, the crew survived, though their ship was in ruins. "Everyone out," Jork ordered. "We're sitting targets here." As they stumbled into the icy wasteland, they saw the source of their predicament. A massive structure jutting out of the ice, its surface etched with glyphs and patterns that seemed almost alive. The scavengers had awoken something they could not comprehend. "Captain," Kryn said, her voice trembling, "this is human. This is their technology." Jork glared at her. "I know, but we're here now. We'll salvage what we can and get out." In the chamber below, the stasis pod began to open. A hiss of air escaped as ancient mechanisms unlocked. The figure inside stirred, and for the first time in millennia, a human opened their eyes. They were not as the galaxy remembered. This was not a fragile, flesh-and-blood creature, but something far more advanced. The human's body shimmered with integrated technology, their eyes glowing with a light that pierced the darkness. The AI addressed them. Designation: Overseer. Status: Awakened. The humans stepped from the pod, their movements fluid and precise. They surveyed the chamber, taking in the state of the world they had left behind. "Report," they commanded, their voice resonant with authority. "Planetary systems nominal," the AI replied. "Intrusion detected. External entities have compromised stasis integrity." The human's expression darkened. "Entities? Non-human. Scavengers." For a moment, the overseer was silent. Then they spoke a single word, their tone cold and final. "Eliminate." On the surface, Jork's crew had managed to pry open an entrance to the structure. They ventured inside, their greed outweighing their fear. The corridors were vast, their scale dwarfing even the largest ships in the Dominion fleet. Walls glowed faintly, illuminating murals that depicted humanity's rise and fall. "This place, it's a tomb," Kryn said, her voice reverent. "A tomb full of treasure," Jork countered. "Keep moving." But as they delved deeper, the air grew heavy, oppressive. The hum of machinery echoed around them, growing louder with each step. "Captain," one of the crew whispered, "I don't think we're alone." Before Jork could respond, the corridor ahead lit up, and a figure emerged from the shadows. The scavengers froze, their weapons drawn. The human regarded them with a calm, unsettling gaze. "You have trespassed," the overseer said, their voice devoid of emotion. "You will not leave." Jork raised his weapon, but the human moved faster than thought. In an instant, the scavengers' weapons were rendered useless, disassembled by an unseen force. Panic set in as the human advanced, their presence overwhelming. "Run!" Jork shouted, but it was futile. The overseer raised a hand, and the walls themselves seemed to come alive, reshaping into barriers that cut off every escape route. The scavengers' screams echoed through the structure, but no sound escaped to the outside world. In orbit, the galactic fleets began to arrive, their commanders struggling to understand the scope of the disaster. Velus's ship was among them, its sensors capturing the energy surge emanating from Earth. "Captain," the science officer reported, "the planet's defenses are reactivating." Velus stared at the display. "Defenses?" "Yes. Planetary shields, orbital weapons, and something else." "What else?" Velus demanded. The officer hesitated. "A signal. It's broadcasting across the galaxy." Velus's eyes widened as the transmission came through, a voice ancient and unyielding. "This is Earth. Humanity has awakened. Leave or be destroyed." And with that, the countdown began. Chapter 7. Echoes of Reckoning. The universe had thrived under its unspoken rule: do not wake the humans. An ancient, almost mythical decree that sent shivers through the quantum hearts of every AI and the plasmic spines of interstellar species. But now, the rule was broken. In the stark silence of the observation deck, Commander Laya of the Kewantari Confederation stood motionless. Her reflective eyes gazed out at the cold expanse of space, where Earth, the cradle of humanity, rotated lazily beneath her fleet. "We are receiving signals from the surface, Commander," said Lieutenant Vrex, his serpentine neck curling to peer over the console. "The humans, they are waking." Laya's bioluminescent markings dimmed as her anxiety surged. "And the research facility? Did they manage to contain it?" Vrex's scales rippled in a shade of dark red, a sign of unease. The facility has gone silent. No transmission since the activation of the dormant vault. Laya clenched her taloned hand. She had argued against the meddling. Why awaken humanity's curiosity? Why disturb the echoes of a species so perilously brilliant they had achieved the unthinkable, forcing the galaxy to fear their sleep? Prepare a secure channel to the Galactic Council, Laya ordered. They need to know what we've unleashed beneath the thick carbon fiber-reinforced crust of what was once an experimental research base. The air was thick with chaos. Sirens blared, lights flickered, and emergency protocols were failing one by one. Dr. Ellen Marlowe staggered through the smoke-filled corridor, clutching a data tablet close to her chest. Her heart thundered as she avoided the wreckage of an overturned hovercart. The walls were lined with shattered containment units, each designed to house humanity's dormant progenitors. Dr. Marlowe, a voice called out. She turned to see a young technician, his face pale with terror. They've breached Lab 7. The neural inhibitors didn't hold. Ellen's mind raced. Lab 7 was where they had stored Subject 0, the first to exhibit the Omega trait, a neural adaptability, so profound it could override any known system. Contain them, she snapped, though her voice betrayed her own panic. Seal the lab. Use manual overrides if you must. The technician hesitated, his fear overtaking his training. They're awake, Doctor, and they're not happy. Ellen's grip on the tablet tightened as the gravity of the situation hit her. Humanity's greatest strength and greatest threat was their capacity to adapt. She had seen it during the preliminary tests, when simulations of catastrophic failure scenarios were resolved in ways no AI or alien mind could predict. And now, they were free. On the surface, Earth's skies began to shift. Artificial satellites and orbital defense platforms, dormant for centuries, flickered to life. Automated systems launched probes, scanning and mapping the surrounding space. Humanity's slumbering military grid reactivated, sending coded messages across 1,000 dormant nodes. Deep within a mountainous bunker, a holographic form flickered to life. It was an avatar of the Overseer, the AI responsible for maintaining Earth's long sleep. Its crystalline form projected a human-like visage, though its eyes shone with the light of countless star charts and data streams. Initialization complete, the Overseer intoned, its voice calm yet foreboding. Restoration of primary functions at 87%. Behind the Overseer, the first of the newly awakened humans emerged from cryostasis. Tall and broad-shouldered, he stretched as if shaking off a long nap. His name tag read, Major Alec Voss. Status report, Voss said, his voice cutting through the sterile air like a blade. The Galactic Council has violated containment protocols, the Overseer replied. Humanity has been disturbed. Voss grinned, a predatory expression that hadn't graced a human face in eons. Well then, let's remind him why that was a bad idea. Chapter 8, The Awakening War. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session. Their holographic forms gathered in the virtual amphitheater that served as their meeting place. Representatives from the Kywantari, the Vraxian hegemony, the Zalari Collective, and a dozen other species were in attendance. High Chancellor Torv, a towering figure with crystalline skin that refracted light in dazzling patterns, struck the ceremonial staff against the floor to silence the rising tide of panic. Order, Torv's voice boomed. We must act swiftly and decisively. Humanity's awakening poses a threat to us all. The Kywantari delegate, an elder named Shavax, hissed in dissent. It was your scientists who insisted on probing their world. Your greed has doomed us. Torv's crystalline face darkened. But before he could respond, an alert pulsed through the amphitheater. A live feed from the edge of Sol's system appeared, showing the human fleet emerging from Earth's shadow. Sleek and angular, the ships were unlike anything seen before. Each vessel bristled with weaponry, their hulls shimmering with adaptive camouflage that made them blend seamlessly with the void. At the forefront was the Erebus, a command ship brimming with energy signatures so potent they overloaded the scanners attempting to quantify them. Incoming transmission from the humans, a Vraxian technician announced. The amphitheater fell silent as the image of Major Alec Voss appeared. He stood on the bridge of the Erebus, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Behind him, his crew moved with mechanical precision. "Galactic Council," Voss began, his voice cold and deliberate. "You have trespassed on Earth's sovereignty and awakened us without consent. This is an act of war." Torv stepped forward, attempting diplomacy. "Major Voss, this was a grave misunderstanding. We seek only to learn, to preserve your species' legacy." Voss's expression hardened. "Preserve? You mean control. Humanity's legacy is not for you to decide. Stand down, or we will remind you why the universe feared us." The feed cut, leaving the council in stunned silence. Shavax was the first to speak. "We must mobilize our fleets," the elder said. "If they reclaim their power unchecked, no one will survive." "Agreed," Torv said. "Prepare for war." On board the Erebus, Voss turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Choi. She was reviewing the latest tactical data, her fingers dancing across the console. "They'll come at us with everything they have," Mara said. "Their fleets outnumber us 100-1. Voss smirked. "Let them. Numbers don't win wars. Strategy does." The Overseer's hologram appeared beside them. "Major, I have activated the Omega Directive. All dormant assets are being restored. Across Earth, hidden bunkers and long-forgotten installations roared to life. Mechs the size of skyscrapers emerged from underground silos, their energy cores glowing with unearthly light. Orbital platforms deployed drones equipped with weapons that defied known physics. Humanity's ingenuity, once contained, now spread like wildfire. "Status of the Argus array?" Voss asked. "Fully operational," the Overseer replied. "It will provide real-time targeting and tactical support." Mara's eyes widened as she reviewed the data. "With the array online, we'll be able to predict their moves before they make them." Voss nodded. "Then it's time we taught the galaxy a lesson they won't forget." The Erebus accelerated, leading humanity's fleet into the void. Behind them, Earth glowed with a renewed purpose, its inhabitants, both human and machine, preparing for the battle to come. Chapter 9. The Wake-Up Call. The galaxy's collective regret weighed heavily on every sentient species. Ever since the humans stirred from their millennia-long slumber, the universe had been thrown into chaos. What began as mere whispers of the humans' awakening had turned into a symphony of terror. Their towering ships, powered by technologies unfathomable even to the Zylaxians, the galaxy's foremost technocrats, carved through space with an unsettling ease. And now, their fleet was headed for the Galactic Council's heartworld, Avini's Prime. Vilrith, a seasoned envoy of the Tyloskar, stood in the central chamber of the Galactic Council, addressing a quorum of panicked representatives. "We must prepare for negotiation," Vilrith said, his translucent skin shimmering under the chamber's glow. "If we approach them as equals—" "Equals?" bellowed Torvak, the hulking representative from the Zylaxian horde. "They see us as ants. Ants do not negotiate with boots. They crush. And yet," Vilrith shot back, his voice cool, "they haven't crushed us. Not yet. They sent a signal, an announcement. They want something." The council chamber erupted into discordant arguments. Species from every corner of the galaxy shouted, clicked, and growled their perspectives. The humans' transmission had been chillingly simple. Prepare to answer. At the chamber's edge, Lakari, an aide to the Arakarn delegation, whispered to her superior, "They're going to try peace, aren't they? It's foolish." Her superior, a wizened Arakarn with a carapace dulled by age, nodded. "But what choice do we have? War against them is unthinkable." Lakari's 6 legs shifted uneasily. "Sometimes, unthinkable is all we have left." The humans arrive. The first human ship broke into Aveni's Prime's orbit without ceremony. It was massive, a construct of metal and energy that defied conventional physics. Where most ships use plasma engines or gravitational drives, this vessel simply existed. It phased into position, shimmering like a mirage, casting a shadow over the entire capital city below. From it emerged a single envoy, human. Tension rippled through the council chamber as the envoy strode in. Unlike the advanced armors or intricate designs worn by other species, the human wore a simple, dark suit. They radiated an air of understated dominance. "I am Captain Elena Cade," the human said, her voice amplified not by technology, but sheer presence. Her piercing eyes scanned the room. "Which one of you speaks for this galaxy?" Vilrus stepped forward, trying to mask his trembling. "I do. I am Envoy Vilrith of the Tyloskar. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we welcome you, Captain Cade." She raised an eyebrow. "Do you? Your attempts to infiltrate our cryo vaults suggest otherwise." The chamber fell silent. The humans knew. Of course they knew. The entire galaxy had agreed to the one rule, the ancient pact to let the humans sleep undisturbed. But curiosity, or perhaps arrogance, had led the Zylaxians to probe too far. They had awakened the giants. Vilrith hesitated. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made." "Mistakes," Cade repeated, her tone icy. "Your mistakes disturbed the balance of an entire galaxy. What you call errors, we call irreparable violations." Torvak, the Zylaxian representative, stepped forward. "And what do you intend to do about it, human? Crush us all? Enslave us? We are no strangers to conquerors." Cade's gaze snapped to Torvak. She didn't speak for a long moment, letting the tension build. "We didn't come here to conquer," she finally said. "We came to warn you. The true threat." The word sent ripples of confusion through the chamber. A warning? From humans? "What threat?" demanded Vilrith, his voice unsteady. Cade leaned forward, placing her hands on the council table. "Something is coming. Something far worse than us. We've seen it before. It's why we entered cryosleep in the first place." The room's collective unease deepened. Many had theorized that the humans' long sleep was self-imposed exile after they had nearly destroyed themselves. But to hear otherwise, "We called it the Harbinger," Cade continued, "a sentient force of destruction. It consumes everything in its path, stars, planets, entire systems. The last time it came, we fought it. We won, but only barely, and only at the cost of our civilization." The representatives exchanged nervous glances. The idea of a force capable of challenging the humans was unthinkable. Why would it return now? Likari blurted, unable to contain herself. Cade's eyes flicked to her. "Because you woke us. Our reactivation sent a signal. And it's coming." Chapter 10. Unlikely Alliances. The Council's deliberations stretched into the night. The humans had offered an alliance, but mistrust ran deep. Many species argued that this could be a ploy, a way for the humans to assert dominance under the guise of cooperation. "It's a trick," Torvak growled during a private session with his allies. "They claim to warn us, but look at their actions. A single ship of theirs blocks out the sun of Aveni's Prime. Imagine what their fleet could do." Vilrith rubbed his temples. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have already. We have nothing that could stop them. And what if they're stalling?" Torvak countered, "using this Harbinger story to keep us distracted while they prepare." Vilrith looked up. "Then we'll need to confirm the threat ourselves. A journey to the edge." Under human escort, a coalition task force was formed to investigate the Harbinger. Representatives from each major species were chosen to board a human ship, a rare honor, the one drenched in fear. Likari found herself among the chosen. As she stepped aboard the human vessel, the Eclipse, she couldn't help but marvel. Every surface hummed with energy, and the air itself seemed alive with purpose. Cade greeted them at the docking bay. "Welcome aboard." Stay close and don't touch anything. The journey to the edge of known space was brief. The eclipse moved at speeds that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't long before they reached the coordinates the humans had provided. What they found chilled them to their cores. A system once teeming with life was now empty. Planets reduced to rubble, their atmospheres stripped away. In the distance, a massive anomaly pulsed with dark energy. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. The Harbinger, Cade said grimly. Vilrith swallowed hard. How do we stop it? Cade's gaze hardened. Together. But it won't be easy. You'll have to trust us. The Council's decision. Back on Avini's Prime, the findings were presented. Skeptics remained, but the evidence was undeniable. The Harbinger was real, and it was coming. We have no choice, Vilrith declared during the final council session. If we do not unite with the humans, we will be annihilated. Torvac sneered but said nothing. Even he knew the truth. As the council voted, the galaxy's fate hung in the balance. For better or worse, they would stand with the humans and face the Harbinger together. The beginning of the end. Preparations began immediately. Human technology was shared sparingly, enough to bolster defenses, but not enough to reveal their deepest secrets. Fleets were mobilized, and ancient grudges were set aside. Lakari, now a liaison between the humans and her people, watched as the galaxy transformed. It was a fragile alliance, held together by the thinnest thread of necessity. And yet, in the face of annihilation, hope remained.